Hey, this is Cedric, your host of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast. And thank you so much for checking out my show, where we have philosophical conversations about the economic, societal, and cultural implications of Bitcoin and the future of money. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the Bitcoin Matrix. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button so that more people see it and put those notifications on so that you don't miss out on any fresh and new content. This episode with Susie B DDS about science, memes, dreams, and how Bitcoin changes you is brought to you by River Financial. Set up zero-fee DCA with River. I love River because they are a Bitcoin-only company, and they make it simple to leave the next generation better off than our own. To get started and find out for yourself, use the link in the show notes and get up to $10,000 free when you buy Bitcoin and miners at river.com. Then get your sats off your exchange. My favorite hardware wallet is the COLDCARD from Coinkite. You can also start by transferring your coins to a simple OPENDIME to keep them safe. It's definitely worth learning how to use these tools. You can get a 5% discount by using the referral link in the show notes. Bitcoin 2023 will be back in Miami Beach. Education, celebration, and hyper-Bitcoinization will once again be on the agenda. Join us May 18th to 20th. Use the code MATRIX for 15% off your tickets. And now, let's enter the Bitcoin Matrix with Susie B DDS for this heart-to-heart chat about technology, the news, raising kids, and this life-changing thing called Bitcoin.
What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Today's guest on the show is Susie B DDS, who joins me to talk about Bitcoin, dentistry, and how her father invented the heart scan. Susie is a wife, mom of four, dentist with a twisted sense of humor, and a professional memer in the eyes of her children. Susie B DDS, welcome to the Bitcoin Matrix podcast. How are you?
Oh, so good. Thanks for having me on, Cedric.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. Like we were talking about a little earlier, I think you're one of my favorite Twitter personalities. It's very funny. It's a very different take on things and a bit light, which is nice to see out there. I think that's what kind of comes across, and let's call it your work. So I'd love to get more into your background. I mean, your father invented the heart scan. You're a dentist. Maybe where did all this start? Did you always want to be a dentist? Were you always
No, not at all. Not at all. So my dad's a nuclear physicist, and I was a professor at Stanford. And so my trajectory was thinking that I wanted to be a professor. And I was interested in biochemistry and physiology and biology. So that's what I was doing. That was my undergrad at the University of Utah. And it just so happened one of the grad students in the lab I was working in, his dad was a dentist, and he had a standing Friday lunch date with his PhD son, grad candidate student son. And he'd come in every Friday and he would kind of tease me and he would like, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do research for, you're not suited for this. And so finally I was like, well, what do you think I should do? I'm passionate about this. And he said, you should be a dentist. And I was like, ugh, I could never be a dentist. And he said, come work for me for 1 month. And so I did that summer, and he just, it was a charmed life. He was adored in the community. He, had every Friday off, and it was a lifestyle thing, and he just loved his work. And then I became interested in the work, and I saw, that was interesting. So that's how I became a dentist. And it's been a great career. I just retired. Finally, we sold our practice in December, but it's something that, I love dentistry and the practice of dentistry. I hate the business of dentistry, dealing with insurance and then with COVID. And it's really like, I'm used to having long time employees. All of a sudden it was tough to get employees. People were leaving the profession. So it really changed how I felt about it. And with me becoming more interested in Bitcoin and sort of changing our lifestyle and our expenses and things, it just was a natural time for us to get out.
Yeah. I find I have a weird sense of dentists. I think of them, I don't think of them that often because I almost think of them as like, well, I don't always want to go,
Yes,
but
that's common.
I'm not a full-on anti-dentite, maybe like the Seinfeld episode. I like them more than doctors. I really have a hard time with doctors just from, I have just a fear. I have just like the natural, like they're going to tell me.
Really?
Yeah, like, I have a sensitivity to receiving information. I think that like, I don't know, like I've fainted at times from bad news or
Oh,
something
wow.
like
Yeah.
that, or
Yeah.
during an exam,
Yeah.
or giving blood. I just, but like with dentists, it seems much more straightforward. I remember growing up, we had a family dentist,
Yeah.
and he was beloved.
Yep.
And I remember thinking a lot about, you'd go see him and he would get to know you. And I would think a lot about his lifestyle. Would I want to be a dentist? Now, I didn't want to go into medicine per se, not from a
Yeah.
science perspective, but I didn't want to deal with the body. And the mouth
Sure.
was, I think, something I was like, I don't want to go in there all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and other people's. But the relationship with the dentist was weird because he was like really chill and nice and everyone loved him. But I felt like he had a cheat code because like I had to like deal with his conversation. Like everyone else was like, oh, he's so nice. He talks about, I'm like, I got no choice.
Yeah.
Like he's talking to me and he's like in this position of power and he's got a drill in my mouth. And like,
Exactly. Yeah. We do have you in, like, I mean, you're a captive audience, but I will say something I've learned about myself is I'm definitely the chatty one. I chat the whole time. Have my patients with their mouths open. I'm the one, telling my corny dad jokes and all of that. But what I've found, over the years, there's definitely things I've never talked about with patients that would, certainly nothing political, which I don't tend to be political anyway, but religion, any hot button topics, all of those. And what Twitter made me realize is how much I censor myself in real life, not just in the office, but with my mom friends, with my kids' school friends. And so Twitter has been this completely liberating thing for me. Like, I get so many funny DMs and, just people thinking I'm weird or goofy, or most people are really nice, but I'm like, but that's not really who I am. It is who I am, but it's not who I get to be in real life. Like, so I feel like I get to be more authentic me, and it is goofy and just having fun, but and then being opinionated when I want to be.
right. Yeah, I love all that. And I think it was really interesting with my dentist too, where, so like I thought about the lifestyle. The lifestyle was extremely appealing.
Yes.
From, I mean, he always was talking about his 2-week trip to Alaska to go salmon fishing. This is what he talked about all year. And he lived for this. And it seemed like a splendid trip. He always had the nicest car in the neighborhood and one of the nicer houses. He was, had to live on like a sort of a more commercial street. So he had some sort of street signage.
Yeah.
But had a very nice lifestyle. His wife worked in the office for most of our career with him. And but I've never found almost never found anything like that since I left high school and then went to college or started my own career in the city and moved from different cities. And now I kind of really like my dentist, actually, my new dentist. They're great.
Okay.
But I've had some interesting experiences over the years. Like we went to a new dentist outside of Chicago, Illinois, and it was very, first it had like a name like Dental Works.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, let's try this out, right? And you could tell it's not a family practice, and it's in a strip mall. And we go for a session, and all of a sudden we need a deep cleansing that is not going to be performed in the normal 45-minute time slot. We need a 3-hour time slot. It's an $1,800 cleansing, and we need $300 mouthwash. And we went through the experience, and it just seemed like a racket.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, VC money and hedge funds have entered the dental world. It's been going on for about 15 years now. It's really taken a foothold in the last 5 years. And they just get smarter and smarter. It used to be that the Teachers Fund of Canada, they have a huge dental business that they invest in called Heartland. And they used to come in and they would buy these practices and then change the name to a Dental Works or, whatever, Dent First. And they realized that patients kind of realized, were gun shy and, oh, I don't trust that. We want the family dentist. So what they do now, and I know this because we just sold our practice, but we were approached by several of these large companies. It was, we're going to buy your practice. You have to stay on for this many years. The multiple you get of what we pay you is based on how many years. You have to produce X amount a year. And we're not going to change the name. We're just going to leave it as so it's all same old, same old. But it just looking at what they want us to do. Dentistry is a gray. There is some black and white, but there's a whole, it's 80% gray. One dentist can tell you one thing, another dentist can tell you other. And it's not that one is right or wrong. In a lot of it, it's if you have a scratch on your car, are you okay with that scratch? Or is it, oh, there's no way? That's where the gray area is. And gray area is really dangerous when you're trying to optimize profits. It leads to being unethical. And then they're incentivizing these dentists. Hey, you don't get your bonus at the end of the month that we've prepaid you, that you'll have to pay back unless you diagnose this month. This much, X amount. It is the most unethical, terrible, terrible incentive structure that we can think of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I remember going to satisfy the bill a few weeks later, and a suit walked in.
Yep.
Or was that maybe already in there? And it was like, it felt like he owned the place, or he was an investor, or represented the money of the investors, and the vibe was just very different.
Yeah.
But dentistry has always been, I feel like, very different. Like, I almost feel like doctors and dentists are very different in the sense that, like, cops and firefighters, right? Like, almost like firefighters are seen as benign.
It is different. And here's what I believe it is. I mean, some people might argue with me, but I think it's that insurance has not invaded dentistry like it has medicine, that people still see going to the dentist as not a right, but that, it's optional, but it's nice if you can go, but it's not 100% necessary like medical care. And so because of that, insurance, yes, there's people who have dental insurance, but it's like a coupon. It's not, nobody expects their dental insurance to pay 100%. And so it's insulated dentists quite a bit from that whole mess that is medical insurance.
Yeah, I mean, when you go into a dentist, you could kind of almost get a menu of options. Mm-hmm. It's pretty straightforward, the pricing. You know the pricing before, and most people aren't insured, so they have skin in the game.
Correct. And
I find that, to what you're saying, yeah, you get a very different answer from every dentist, where I don't see that as much in medicine from doctors.
Right. Well, again, because, right, if insurance is paying 70 or 80% of it, 90% of it, like, I don't think you care as much, right? It's just, I just want it fixed. And okay, if it's surgery or medicine for, pharmaceuticals for the rest of my life, whatever, but where it's, I can get a $200 filling or an $1,800 crown, which one am I going to, you might push a little that, and it keeps us honest.
Right. And it seems like most dentists, or at least in the older version of this business model, did fairly well. Whereas I think doctors, the prices are exorbitant. I think they don't have maybe as solid of a lifestyle, or, and I see maybe that being drained from dentistry. Do you think the next generation of dentists will, sort of have it as good, or this invasion of corporate and VC money?
It's changing rapidly. And here is, I think, one of the corporate money coming in and really buying up all these dental practices is number one, a huge problem. Number two, what we see is these kids coming out of dental school have exorbitant student loans. I mean, we had hired an associate to take my place a couple years ago. I took off for a couple of years, and the lowest amount of student loans for one person was $500,000. The highest was a little over $800,000. And so the kind of pay that they were asking us for, we could not match what the corporations were, what they were offering. And they would say, well, can we work on commission? That was because they really wanted to work for a private practice, and they wanted to experience, what these small kind of family practice. And I'm like, I just am not willing to do commission. It's just sleazy to me, and it will make you treat patients differently. I firmly believe that.
Right. So how long have you been practicing dentistry, and are you practicing now? Are you retired? You sold the business? Are you still like doing some consulting? And
So we practiced for 25 years. So this is my 25th year. So when you sell a dental practice, we just sold in December. It's not like another business. You can't just, okay, here's the keys and we're out of here. You've got to transition the patient. So typically you're looking at a year. Some of the people that had talked to us, they wanted us for 5 years. Fortunately, we've managed to negotiate it down to 6 months is when we're getting out. And for us, I mean, we love our patients. These are people who've seen me through all 4 of my children, through, our patients through us baby showers. And, it's just, we've gone to weddings, we've gone to funerals. We've loved being able to do this all these years. So, I mean, for our patients, we want to be here for at least one cycle of cleaning so we can kind of say bye to everyone.
right. And did you move? Are you in the state that, I mean, have you been in one place for 25 years and you're still in that area?
One place for 25 years, yes.
Okay.
But we will be moving out of state. We are retiring to Hawaii. So that's exciting.
I didn't know if you were there already.
Not yet. Not yet.
Got it. And then, so where did, I guess, Bitcoin come into all this?
So my Bitcoin story is my oldest, who's now 21, starting like 2017, he would say, "Mom, you got to buy Bitcoin." I had no interest. It was not something on my radar. I had heard of it, of course, but that was something that was used on, the dark web, and criminals were buying drugs. And I had no interest. My oldest tends to be relentless. And I mean, he just bugged the shit out of me to the point that he put an app on my phone called Coin Mama. I keep meaning to see if that's even still around. And he put that on, and my first Bitcoin purchase was $5. And then it just became it's funny. I think it's kind of the same as like you're saying, we were talking about before with baseball cards or with wine, or it's this gamification. And it became kind of this thing for me, like the change jar in the corner where I was dumping my change. Like, I didn't get coffee this week. I'm going to buy some. And I literally, that's how I would buy since 2018, here and there. I wasn't DCAing. It wasn't like I had any schedule to it. It was just, I'd throw money at it whenever we didn't do something. Oh, we didn't go on vacation because of COVID. I bought, like whatever. And then March of 21 is when Tesla, I was starting to be on Twitter. And then I saw the Tesla announcement. I was like, oh, I wonder how much Bitcoin I have. I go on and look, and I was like, holy cow, I have a lot, it was this significant thing that I never expected. And so then, of course, I followed the typical journey and fell into all the fallacies that you do, I think. And it was, well, I've got to find the next Bitcoin. So I started, studying on shitcoins and ICOs, and took a trading course, and, learning how chart and TA and all of that. I went all in. I convinced a group of 250 dental moms. I mean, I started a Discord, got them all in, which I feel terrible about, that, this is the way. And for a while, it was awesome. I made a lot of money shitcoining. And that's intoxicating. I mean, and I thought I couldn't lose. By like May of 21, I'm like, why is everyone not doing this? I felt like this, sharing with people, like everybody should be doing this. You can't lose. You buy anything, you'll make money. And it was probably somewhere late that summer, I was on Twitter and really sort of boasting about, oh my gosh, this and this coin or whatever. And it was a maxi who just came after me hard. You're an idiot, and so I was going back and forth. It's hard to convince somebody who's made a lot of money that you're doing it wrong and you don't know what you're talking about. And, so I came from this really prideful state, and he said, well, what do you know about Bitcoin? I was like, oh, I have Bitcoin. So what do you know about Bitcoin? And, you know, I kind of kept going back and forth with him, and he was finally like, you're an idiot. Read one Bitcoin book and get back to me. I don't even care what it is. You read one Bitcoin and then I'll have this conversation with you. And that's what made me read the Bitcoin Standard. People had been telling me for a year, you need to read about Bitcoin, and, you know, oh, you should read about it. You should. And I watched podcasts and things, and I thought, oh, I know enough. I don't need to know. So for me, and I always say, I'm so appreciative of toxic maximalism. Everyone gets their message a different way. Like, there's not one correct way for people to receive messages. And that nice, sweet, kind way of, yeah, you should read, you know, it isn't what resonated with me. I needed someone to come after my ego and make me read it. And once I did, it clicked immediately. Oh my gosh, you know, this isn't something I'm gambling and hopefully I'm going to make a lot of money. Everything is really broken. And I didn't even know what money was. I didn't know that the Federal Reserve was not a government entity. I mean, here I am, a business owner, and I didn't know any of this. And so it was a humbling experience. I'm so thankful for it. And I mean, it's changed my life.
I want to know what your family thought of your shit coining. And meaning, like, you know, it's one thing to kind of explain maybe what it's like to be a Bitcoiner to your family. But here, you know, Bitcoiner, I finally feel like you found the truth, but during that shitcoining phase, you're making money, but you're not probably giving the best advice.
Yes, no, not at all.
And here, you know, mom's a dentist. She's a business owner. She got 4 kids. What are you even doing to learn about ICOs? How's your research going? Are you reading white papers? Are you listening to pods on the way to work? What are you doing to figure out how to gamble?
I was listening to pods all the time. And then, you know, I was joining Patreons with these like YouTube traders and, you know, Telegram groups and all. But I mean, it became this all consuming like obsession. I mean,
so what did it replace? Like what was it replacing other free time activities, or was it taking from something?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I definitely, I didn't. So I like to compete in triathlons. So like a lot of what I was listening to would be when I would do like my long bikes or runs, but like I stopped reading at that time. Like it would be, you know, I'd get up. I didn't read a book, I would say, for 7 months. And all I was doing was like, you know, going on these Discords, going on these Telegrams, doing all. So it becomes this obsession that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get rich. And that's all you care about is making more money. It's not about what's right or wrong, fixing anything, you know, anything else, but this very selfish, consuming, I'm going to do this. And if I figure out that secret key, if I figure out that one TA, whatever, you know, that's it. And it's just such a bunch of bull. And what I found very clearly when I was in that shitcoin, and I had what I thought were good friends, and, you know, that wanted me to start businesses with them. And in the end, they were all scammers. They all wanted something from me. They were asking me, you know, one was like, oh, we want you to run this business with us. All you have to do is give us 10 Bitcoin. What? Like, you know, it just, and I found that from everyone, like everyone I looked up to in that time, all ended up being like, they're taking advantage of somebody. What I found very quickly with Bitcoin is like, whether I was messaging someone that I respected or someone I was speaking to on Twitter, they were all trying to teach me something. It was I never had anyone ask me, any maxi, any pleb, I never had them ask me for maybe a question, but nothing, you know, that I had to give of them other than my knowledge, which is what I appreciated. And I think what really drew me to plebs.
Right. What do you think it was about? Like, I love this notion of, you know, making money with money. It's just a very odd notion to me sometimes. And what do you think? You mentioned before you wanted to make the money with the shit coining and just whatever, even on Bitcoin. And so was there something you wanted to do with the money, or was it you wanted like a scoreboard? Like, look how much money I made doing this thing I know how to do. Was it something else?
Yeah. I mean,
like, why were you looking to make money with some money that you had?
I think it was this thing that fell into my lap. And then early on, it seemed, because everyone was making money then. So it seemed like I was really good at it. I mean, the percentages I've made, I mean, it was more than our very solid stock portfolio had made in 10 years. Like, it was ridiculous money. So then what happens? You make all this easy money that seems ridiculous. And that shifts your thinking to, all of a sudden you want, oh, maybe we'll get a bigger house. Maybe we'll get a boat now. Maybe my husband wants a different car. Oh, it would be nice to fly private. It would be it's so insidious to me how that easy money, and it just, I don't know. I find it like, I get embarrassed to think about me then, because it's just this easy money breeds things that you just want things.
What has the conversation been like with your eldest, who dumped this idea in your lap of Bitcoin? What were you talking to him during, or her during the shitcoining period, or? And then what is the conversation?
A little bit. He was away at a military college, and so they had them locked down really tight. So every now and then we would get to communicate. He wasn't allowed to have a phone at the time. So, but yes, I mean, and he was interested in like the whole NFT thing at the time, and so we had some conversations. But I mean, he thinks it's the most hilarious thing that I've become involved in the Bitcoin Twitter, and that I'm a memer, and he makes fun of me all the time. But he will never, ever, he said, you owe me for the rest of your life. It's basically what he says.
Yeah. And so, yeah, what about Twitter? Like, how did you find your voice on Twitter? And are you naturally extroverted?
No. So I'm not. So I'm friendly. I'm definitely, I'm never not friendly, but I'm naturally very introverted. So when my husband and I, let's say, go to the airport, we're on an airplane. By the time we leave, like, he's been and had us invited to somebody's house, or people know my name and I don't know them. Whereas when I'm traveling myself, I don't talk to anybody. I bring my book, and I tend to be introverted. But what I have found is, there is nothing that delights me more than to make people laugh. Like, I just get so much joy from that. So for people, and I know my sense of humor is goofy. The things that make me laugh are, silly. But the fact that people enjoy that on Twitter just like delights me to no end. So
yeah, you have a really interesting approach, I feel like, with your memes. They're very likable, but I find them to be brave and cutting. Disarming, though, without making people feel uncomfortable. I think they make people feel light.
Yeah, I try to say, like, I don't think I'm a toxic maxi. I'm more of a spicy maxi, like, because I want to be. I like to slap people with the truth, but then pat them afterwards, so that, and I'm not one to ever be nasty to someone. Like, I might really disagree with you, and I will be blunt, and I'll call things out, but I'm never going to be, hit below the belt, is what I feel like.
Yeah. How do you feel maybe Bitcoin has changed you?
Oh gosh, I can't think of any area of my life that I don't think Bitcoin has changed. I think the hugest thing that I see for myself is, I think most of my life I was that person who just, put your head down, work hard, and you'll get ahead, and really don't make any waves. Right? Like, make waves for yourself personally, but don't make waves. So for example, I think the perfect example is with all of this COVID stuff. Like, immediately my thought was, when the vaccine came out, go get vaccinated. Not only did I go quickly get vaccinated, I went and went through the training to give the vaccine. Like, that I was, I'm all in. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to help other people. We're going to end this pandemic. And then when I would hear people say things like, wearing a mask is ridiculous, my first thought, oh, what's the big deal? Just wear it. And I'd say that was me my whole life. What's the big deal? Why say anything? Just do it. And it was really people, like, I think the ones who impacted me the most were like Huddle Knot, Gigi, some of these people who are just truthful and brave, I feel like no matter what. And I just so respected that. And I think it empowered me to like, to realize it's really important not to just go along. Like you might think it's not hurting, but enough people do that. And you have what happened with the pandemic. So it's been the biggest thing. And I just am certain without Bitcoin, I wouldn't have found those voices. You know, John Vallis is another one. Like they really just changed really how I live my truth in my life.
Right. So what happened with your family and COVID?
Oh, and actually part of this is what turned me to Twitter. So immediate family, none of us have had COVID. My husband and I are both vaccinated. We will not be getting boosted, but haven't had COVID. But in the summer of 20, my dad almost died. I mean, he was dying, and it was August, and I was at the office when I got the call that they had called an ambulance, and I got a flight out. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting, I'm researching, okay, how do we get him Regeneron? How do we get him, you know, I'm still looking at those kind of things, going through his contacts to try to get that. And I come across a study about ivermectin. Wasn't in the news yet. They were still talking about hydroxychloroquine. And I had some issues when I had looked at the studies of hydroxychloroquine. I'm like, ivermectin? I've prescribed ivermectin for a patient for oral scabies before. It's a nothing drug. I mean, it's innocuous. I can get it. So I was like, well, there's no harm. So I prescribed the ivermectin and got it to my parents. And my mom, who wasn't as sick, but was well in 12 hours. My dad, 48 to 72 hours later, I mean, he went from not being able to breathe, O2 sat in the high 80s to 99%. I watched him get well. And so here I am thinking, and nobody was talking about it. It wasn't in the news yet. Like it just wasn't, I didn't even see it on social media yet. So I came home thinking, oh my God, I've just cured the pandemic, right? Like I'm going to tell everybody about this miraculous drug. It's cheap, $8 for the course, you know? And so I get on Facebook to talk about it. I was very active on Facebook at the time. And within a few days, I was suspended. Cedric, I've never even been suspended from school. Like I've never like, I was like, what? Like, and it said misinformation, all. I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. So it was a week suspension. And then it was sometime, I think it was like January, late January. And Dr. Pierre Corey was talking about ivermectin in front of Congress. So I see this on the news. Oh my goodness. Okay, he's giving testimony about the efficacy of ivermectin. I've been vindicated. Lo and behold, great. So I get on, post that. So see, I said, ivermectin works. Yeah, I was banned. My account was just, and it was my first kind of lightning bolt, like, what is going on? I didn't question anything at that point. I really didn't. And for me, I'm like, here's something, this makes no sense. And then it started me looking for answers. But without that, had they not tried to silence this, I don't think I would have ever looked at it.
Wow. I'm curious then. I mean, what about, how's this been in your real life? You kind of got canceled or deplatformed from Facebook. I guess you got back on, but because I think, you bring up like Gigi, and I agree with you, very brave, but I think you're very brave, very honest, very candid, also punching up, but your account's not anonymous. Are you worried about, I feel like, you are, when I say punching up, like taking on authority with your ideas. They're brave. They might come off as light and funny and make me laugh, but they're challenging, notions that are not light and are controversial.
Yeah. So despite me, I mean, I'm not anonymous at all on Twitter, but pretty much nobody in my life other than my family knows that I'm on Twitter. Like I'm not on Facebook anymore, but if I were, I would never, ever it's funny. I do have one or two friends who know that I'm a Twitter and who will go on a little bit, next neighbor. And they're all like, you're kind of bawdy. And and they're surprised by that. So things like that. Again, I think Twitter is more of who I would be if I wasn't, a mom. I still have kids in middle school, but who I would be if I could just be myself. But the fact that that we've sold the practice and people don't really know I'm there is why I'm a little more brave. Certainly, if this were Facebook, and I mean, I have patients that were friends with me on Facebook. No, you can't. You cannot be as open.
Well, it's interesting. I link that connection with money in the sense of you've worked very hard your whole career. You're now retiring, but that's a proof of work, and you've now accumulated savings from that career, whereas maybe someone at the beginning of the career doesn't have that freedom. And it's interesting how money can be very linked freeing
to money
and speech. It could give us freedom of speech.
Why I wouldn't do that, why I wouldn't be open and talk like that on Facebook, why I never when I shifted, when I started to question the vaccine, why I don't express those strong views among patients or to other unless they ask me. It is tied to money. It's okay, would this impact my practice? Would this, affect my livelihood? And I think people are always weighing that no matter what they do. It's why I so strongly believe in being able to be anonymous on the internet. Very much so. I do respect Jordan Peterson a lot. I've been able to see him speaking. It is the one thing I disagree with him so vehemently. And this is someone who I don't have an anonymous account, but I would fight for that right for anybody, because it does impact how freely you're able to speak and your livelihood. I believe that.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you said there. And I think building on this thread of money, though. So do you think medicine is for curing or managing symptoms?
Oh, no. Medicine, and I mean, I have several close people around me right now that it's so obvious that all medicine doesn't want to cure anything anymore. It is all about managing symptoms to make you comfortable. There's no financial incentive to curing disease.
So has your opinions on sort of the healthcare industry changed? I mean, coming from specifically a dental background.
I felt this way for a while. We've had a few things in our family that, and I have a phenomenal Eastern medicine chiropractor who saved carpal tunnel surgery and things like that. And then one of our friends now, his wife is going through something. And again, it was the first thing the doctor did is threw a couple medicines at his wife. And it's something that I'm like, well, what is the cause of it? And the doctor never discussed that. So they're going in a different direction now.
Yeah. I find most times doctors are very self-service now, or I try to use them that way where I research what symptoms I have. I tend to know. I think it kind of goes this whole lot. You go, you tell the doctor what you have, what you think you need. They're like, "Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let me just double check this paragraph I need to read from this one paper I used to read 15 years ago, and I always check."
Yeah.
And it sounds like I think you do have what you think you have. Let me give you what you've requested. And
absolutely. I mean, they're going to prescribe you something, and it's probably based on what you think it is. Or heaven forbid you need to go to specialists. Then my youngest, about a year ago, was diagnosed with this awful condition, cyclical vomiting syndrome. And to get this diagnosed, I mean, it took forever.
Right. So then what have you seen with like dental tourism and people trying to get, some work done?
Enormous. It's enormous. I was surprised. And this is over a year ago that I saw this statistic. 22,500 people a day cross the border to go get dental treatment. Not a month, a day from the U.S.
Border? Which border are you about to say? Which border?
Between all the borders. So Tijuana, I forget what the other, Aldegones or something.
But we're talking Mexico, not Canada.
No, Mexico. No,
Right.
Canadians are also going to Mexico for dental treatment. So it's, I mean, it's huge. The quality of care, I mean, you would think from hearing, I mean, I'm sure there's awful cases, but quality of care I've seen has been great. And I have a good friend who is a dentist in Mexico City, and he does beautiful work. And then when he tells me what his price is of a crown, and he's on the pricey side, it's not much more than what I pay for my lab fee. So, I mean, I couldn't touch it. I couldn't touch his prices, even if I was doing it, you know, at no charge.
Right. Well, let's get a little more into dentistry.
Yeah.
What do people do for bad breath?
Depends on the cause of bad breath. And this is so interesting. Most people who have really horrendous bad breath don't realize it. It's almost always a spouse or someone else has told them, and that is why we're treating the bad breath. So generally it's one of three things. It is either, the worst one is gum disease. If you have gum disease, you haven't gone to the dentist for a while to clean, that is the worst smelling breath. It's when you have somebody that you can smell across, you know, 3 feet, and you're like, oh, that's usually gum disease. Number two would be people who have a lot of like nasal drainage, allergies, sinus issues, mouth breathers. Maybe they wear a CPAP. They tend to have a huge plaque coating on their tongue. When they stick out their tongue, it'll look kind of gray-white instead of pink. They will have bad breath. You solve that just by scraping the tongue. And then the last one is people who just eat like a lot of like foul smelling things, you know, onions, garlics, you know, things like that, which that tends to be the least of the disgusting bad breaths.
Right. And probably more temporary.
Yes.
What about flossing?
Everyone needs to floss all the time.
Okay.
And how I get people to think about it, people think they floss to get food out from between your teeth. That's a nice benefit. It's not why you're flossing. The bacteria in your mouth is disgusting, and it's terrible systemically. The bacteria in your mouth loves the heart to create heart infections. It can go to the brain. They know, and that's why you hear that, oh, you'll live longer if you floss. It's not because you're flossing your gums, it's you're getting rid of the bacteria. Flossing between your teeth with string floss disrupts the happy home of the bacteria. It's like kicking over an anthill. You're not allowing it to flourish, to overgrow.
Okay, what about the sticks versus the, you know, the strings you got to cut?
The sticks works as well. Like you just mechanically are disrupting the, you know, their home. I mean, that's basically what you're doing. What doesn't work as well, I like it better than nothing, but nothing beats string floss, is a water pick. It's fine. And if you're not going to ever floss, use the water pick, but it doesn't. If you want to be optimally healthy, you need to floss.
So then where does the water pick have a place in all of this, in addition to flossing?
Sure, if you like it. Like some people put mouthwash in it, and this, if they get those tonsil stones that I put in, or if they just feel like a lot of food gets, you know, in crevices, it helps for sure.
Okay, what about mouthwash with alcohol in it or not, or how does this
I
work?
like mouthwash, especially if you use it at night before you go to bed. You know, it really does help. You know, Listerine has essential oils, and there's a fluoride containing one, and it helps the teeth.
So that brought up, okay, fluoride.
Yes.
What do we want fluoride in our toothpaste? We want it in the mouthwash, and
I believe, and there are people who argue with me, I believe I mean, and I've seen the ill effects of not having it strongly, that you want it in your mouthwash and fluoride. I mean, in your mouthwash and toothpaste. It absolutely fortifies your teeth. I mean, people who have younger kids, especially, who use the natural toothpaste. I mean, I will see the worst cavities that you can imagine. But what people don't realize is the kind of fluoride that's in mouthwash and toothpaste is not the same as what they're putting in our water systems. I do not believe in systemic fluoride at all. I don't believe in the benefit. I think it's harmful. And what's being put in the water systems, vast majority it's a toxic byproduct. It's not pharmaceutical grade fluoride. I would not want it in my body. But with toothpaste and mouthwash, unless you're eating it doesn't have any meaningful uptake in the bloodstream.
right. And then what about electric toothbrush versus manual?
Yeah, everyone should be using an electric toothbrush. They just do such a better job. I mean, it's night and day. Like we go in and visit a lot of our patients who've been moved to nursing homes, and we'll usually gift them with a electric toothbrush if they don't have one. And it's their hygiene, it's night and day.
All right. And what about sensitive teeth to cold or heat, or what do you do, or what does that mean?
Yeah, if you have cold sensitive, it's generally that you have some gum recession, and the root surface of your teeth doesn't have enamel over it. So if that's a problem, you can use one of these remineralizing toothpaste. They work even better than Sensodyne. And actually using the mouthwash at night that's fluoride containing before you go to bed. If you do that, last thing you do before you go to bed, it's kind of a top coat that will help reduce the sensitivity.
You know, we were talking before the show. I went to one of these corporate VC backed dentists by accident. We went one time. I got ripped off, but part of the process, we got this quote unquote $200 fluoride mouthwash.
Oh my gosh.
That they told us, you know, you could use sort of like for an intense treatment.
Yeah.
You know, does this sound legit or like?
No, that sounds like a total ripoff.
Yeah. What about braces?
So I'd say my younger patients, definitely majority are still using braces and, going with wire braces. I'd say 90% of my adult patients were doing Invisalign on them. And the thinking in dentistry has really shifted. It used to be, you're just getting braces for cosmetic reasons, but now we've been doing this long enough. If you have a patient that has, like, let's say, as we get older, our teeth all move this way. That's why you'll see older people where their front teeth, it looks like rat teeth, and it's like really crowded. Well, if you get all that crowding and someone's biting and things are hitting where they shouldn't be, we'll have patients who come in their late 60s, early 70s, and they've broken off a tooth. And almost always it's because of all of this crowd. I mean, it's actually always because of this crowding. And so what we found is if we functionally can get you into a stable position, that doesn't happen. So there's a functional reason for braces, we realize, and for good occlusion, that's not just cosmetic anymore.
Right. Have you ever met or do you know any dentists with bad teeth?
Oh gosh, yeah, especially older dentists. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked a little bit about gum disease. What I've found very interesting in my conversations with dentists over the years is gum inflammation and how indicative that could just be of complete health.
Yeah. I mean, inflammation and, inflammatory factors are just bad in the body. There's nothing good about inflammation. So one of the excuses I get, when I get pushback from patients, well, I should say first, gum disease does have a genetic predisposition. So there are some people who, definitely some Asian populations, African-American populations, they do have a genetic predisposition to gum disease due to the bacterial makeup in their mouth. But you can keep it at bay by flossing. I mean, if you're reducing the bacterial load, you can manage it and get rid of it, eradicate it. And so you have to floss, you have to go to the dentist if and not have this tartar buildup underneath the gums. And it impacts overall health.
What have you seen? Well, okay, I want to ask about whitening. What about whitening in the toothpaste and just the process of whitening? Is that safe?
Yeah.
Is it effective?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the patient, and it's effective on most people. The whitening toothpaste, what I find is it just, let's say you drink a lot of coffee or tea, it just keeps the staining at, it to a minimum, right? It's just a surface cleanser. If you want to bleach, you have to use one of these peroxide systems. The ones you get at the dentist are stronger than what you get over the counter. And yeah, I mean, it can lighten you several shades, and it not harmful to the teeth. Some people worry about the sensitivity. That doesn't mean it's weakened your teeth at all. It's just that it's cleaned out this, like the little microscopic holes in your teeth. So that's why it can feel sensitive.
Right. Do you have any...
I should go back to flossing, Cedric. I didn't mention this. This is something I always say to patients. I'll have patients who say, I don't want to floss because I bleed every time I floss. I hate that. If you're bleeding every time you floss, you need to floss more. It means your gums aren't healthy and inflamed. It's exactly like if you say, I don't want to work out, I don't want to lift because my muscles are sore when I do it. That means you need to keep doing it.
Got it. And do you have any gross or funny dental stories that you could share?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'd say this one was kind of horrifying. Years ago, I've had two that I think about often. One was we had a patient in a nursing home, and the nurse calls and says, Mr. So-and-so's denture is missing. He had a full denture on top. We believe he swallowed it. And I said, I mean, it's the size of the palm of your hand. I was like, oh, no. There's no way he swallowed it. I'm sure someone's thrown it away, or he feels like he swallowed it and we think he swallowed it. So I said, well, you need to go and take him to the emergency. And darn if he didn't swallow this thing.
Wow.
The whole day. Yeah. So it ended up being like a big deal, and they had to surgically, like it was a big deal. And then I had another patient that we were seating a crown, and he kind of coughed while he was doing it and inhaled the crown, and then sneezed, and the crown came out through his nose.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Okay. Do patients ever tell you weird things?
Oh God. Yeah, I think so many of our patients, see us as friends. And so yeah, we get a lot of stuff that, a lot of patients' sex lives, patients bringing in their mistress along, when we treat the rest of the family, dating life, STD, like we get a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I always wondered, like, one thing, did you feel that, like, being in the dental practice, you got to, like, be very, like you were saying, you're social, and I guess you talk to patients, but I didn't see it as a social experience. My dentist, it was like he would work with his wife, he would see the patients, but I felt like I was a prisoner.
Yeah.
Did you feel like I always wanted to work in maybe a bigger space with a lot of people around when I was in my 20s or 30s?
Yeah.
What did you make of sort of that environment? And
for me, it was, I think perfect, where I like to be friendly, but again, like, I'm not somebody who loves going to big parties or something like that. So being able to have that one-on-one connection, and, just being able to have time. And then I think that's why patients would feel so close to us and would open up with things that maybe you wouldn't normally tell your dentist, is because yeah, we had that sort of one-on-one. I think it's back to the older days with the way people remember their dentists or doctors, that it was just one-on-one time, and they weren't running around seeing 5 patients at the same time. And so yeah, I'll miss that part of the practice.
Right. And so I guess you're a mom of 4.
Yeah.
And I think there's some good variance in the ages here.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice to raising productive, unspoiled kids?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I think we've done a better job with our younger 2 than our older 2. My husband and I, we say it all the time, like with our older 2, we really never wanted them to feel bad, or or go without, and things that we didn't have when we were younger, we wanted them. And it's been interesting to see the difference between them and then the younger 2. There's a 6-year age gap between the 2 sets. And we were just busier, and I think not as placating and constantly. I mean, we planned our vacations around our older 2 kids. Where do you want to go? And you just can't make your life all about your children, because you will create entitled, spoiled brats. And we've had to do a lot to sort of unwind a lot of that. I don't think we've done it all successfully, but we started bringing them on our dental missions and having them teach English and but still, I think both of them, and they're great kids. I mean, I don't mean to sound, we're so proud of them and they're wonderful kids, but I do think they are less resilient and more expecting that things should all go perfectly than my younger 2.
That's interesting. So my brothers are 8 and 11, or 9 and 12 years older than me. And I think it's kind of in the inverse.
Really? You were the more spoiled one?
Yeah, by far.
Interesting. Well, I guess that's more common, actually.
I think what you're getting at, though, a little bit, though, is also So maybe I was more spoiled, more materialistic, but I think what you're getting a little bit is sort of the emotional placation. So I think maybe as you get older, you can reflect on parenthood a little bit more. You're going through the second time in terms of rounds. The first two were together, the second two were the next round.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, well, you pivot a little bit, and you have that.
But what's interesting, Cedric, is we didn't even do it knowingly. It's just our practice grew immensely between the time of our older two and younger two. So we did just become busier with that. Plus, we had major sports schedules and things with the older two. So it's just naturally we couldn't devote everything to our younger two. And really, they're just much easier children and more independent. Like I can remember, I mean, my older two for the longest time didn't cook, or they wouldn't, like, we would, they expected us to have after school snacks ready and like, or breakfast made in the morning. Where's my younger two? I mean, they just get up.
That was complete. My parents never cooked like breakfast for my brothers. They slept in, and then I got breakfast at 7 in the morning.
Oh, so you're like my older two. Yeah.
They were like, this is the last one. This will be the last one to walk, the last one to talk, all those things. And
sure.
And I think they were public school teachers, but they were a little bit further along in their career.
Yeah.
And now you have one kid instead of two kids to sort of in the house. And
so it was easier
to kind of give me what they didn't give my brothers, I guess.
Yeah. Are your brothers resentful of it?
I think one was resentful of my role, of being the baby and sort of having that opportunity. And I think one sort of embraced it, and saw that it just was logical and why. And, but yeah, I think there's a sense of resentment there a little bit,
Sure.
I don't think I got spoiled by it or rubbed it in their face, or anything like that. But, it's a very, even like even if kids get things equal because of inflation, like think about it this way. Let's say the first child doesn't go to school for college.
Yep.
And college would have cost $5,000 a year. And then the second college goes to school and college costs $8,000 a year.
Yep.
And the third college goes to school and college costs $52,000 a year. So, now imagine you're the first one, you say, well, I didn't get college. I chose not to go, but you didn't pay, let's say the parent pays. So they say, I want now $200,000 that you just spent on the third child.
Yeah. I know some adults my age who feel this way, or,
and it's a strange thing because the parents didn't necessarily have the $20,000 for the first child to go. Maybe they were going to finance it.
Yeah. And
they don't necessarily have the $200,000 for the second child to go. They're financing it.
Right.
But from the first child's perspective is now you're willing to spend $200,000 on them and not me.
Right. Right.
And a lot of that is purchasing power and inflation and, the distortion of money. But, and so I could see how I could see how that could affect children and sibling relationships. And
sure.
This one got a bike for Christmas and this one didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I have a hard time understanding that whole, I see it so much, but being resentful of your siblings or, I just, once your parents have raised you and given you a great education, they don't owe us anything. In fact, I think we owe them. And I don't understand the whole, I don't know. I just see it differently.
Well, this brings up, okay. So with we were three boys, but you have clearly an oldest, a middle, and a youngest.
Yeah.
So I think there's clear delineations of the oldest child, the middle child syndrome, maybe, and the youngest.
Yeah.
You can have those things. What about with 4? Does that eliminate middle child syndrome?
Yeah, it really does. And that was very much why my husband wanted to have a 4th one. I was 40 when I had him. And so I was like, oh, but I'm so glad we did, because we don't have middle child syndrome. And in fact, I would say middle daughter, my next to the youngest, acts very much like it's almost like, I guess, because it's 2 sets, it's older, younger, older child, younger child. Again, we kind of have that same dynamic. Yeah.
And you've read The Mandibles.
Of course. Yeah.
What'd you think?
Oh gosh, I loved it. And I hadn't read fiction. And, once I went down with the Bitcoin standard, I've all I've read for, a couple of years was just nonfiction. So it was nice to read a fiction, and I loved it. What about you?
Oh, I thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were really well developed. I thought the economic dystopia was very interesting. I think that the author was the youngest kid,
Yeah.
Willing or Wiling, and I think
Yeah.
that kid was asking all the right questions about money and figuring it all out. And then I think she ran out of interest in getting to the bottom of the rabbit hole. And I think she then transferred her voice to the professor, who was just
I see that. Yeah.
I hear all your questions, but they're just wrong, and we got to stick with the system.
Yeah.
And became very pompous and just didn't answer her own questions. But one of the questions that brought up in the book for me, though, is what do you think about the notion of, like, should older siblings be more successful than younger siblings? There was that interesting dynamic in the book where the younger sister was more successful than the older sister.
Yeah. And I think so. Being from, my mother's Korean, so I'm half Asian, and very much in that culture, it's the oldest is expected to, especially oldest male, but the oldest, no matter what, is expected to take care of the family. So I think, sort of have that bias where I think it's better when the oldest is most successful, because they're more apt to take care of families. Me seeing a lot of this breakdown of the family structure and people not taking care of the elderly, and it's alarming to me, especially with us visiting nursing homes and things like this, and me seeing, over COVID, it was heartbreaking. We would have some of these patients that have been longtime patients of ours who would call our emergency line, and we'd be talking and talking, and after a while we would realize, oh, they don't have an emergency, they're just need somebody to talk to. And it was just crushing for us.
Yeah. On that line, in terms of the elderly, what is the hardest part of adulting?
What's the hardest part of adulting? I think for me, it's as a mom and a working mom, it's always been like having work-life balance, and then making sure I'm taking care of myself too.
Right. I'll cheat a little bit. You tweet your Twitter response was watching your parents grow old.
Oh, I saw someone had put that up, and I responded to that. Yeah, that's been since COVID. My parents were so active, hiking every day, and since COVID, there's been major health concerns that I believe are related to the vaccine, and it's been grueling.
Right. In terms of health, what's been your best New Year's resolution? Or all time?
Ever? Of all time, it was losing weight for sure. I lost 78 pounds. It's 12 years ago now. 11 since it was that year, but yeah.
And so you recently shared this on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that process? What was that process like?
Well, it was funny, but it was right after I had my son, and he was a 10.5-pound baby, and I was fatter than I had ever been. And when I had him, go to the hospital, have this gigantic baby, and I thought, okay, well, at least like 20 pounds are going to be gone. And I can remember coming home and getting on the scale 2 days later, and I was exactly the same weight as when I went to deliver him. And I just sat down on that scale and cried. Like, I just cried and cried. And my husband had started doing triathlons 3 years before and had worked his way up. He was doing a lot of Ironman triathlons. And I just was like, okay, you know what, and I thought he was crazy for doing them. I went and supported him and I volunteered, but I thought he was insane. But I was like, I'm going to do a triathlon. I got to have something. I tend to be competitive. So started training for my first little sprint triathlon, almost drowned. It was horrifying, but I got the bug. Over about 4 to 5 months, I lost 25 pounds doing all this Ironman training. And I got obsessive. I tend to get obsessive about things, a Bitcoin and, so I was working out all the time and I only lost 25 pounds. And at the end of the day, it was a nutritionist I talked to, yoga nutritionist. And he was like, you can't eat carbs, right? I was like, no, I don't know. I can't eat carbs. He's like, you can't eat carbs. So cut the carbs, and it took about another 5 months, and I lost another, it was, a little over 50 pounds.
And I mean, it seems like from what I get on Twitter though, like especially around seed oils, I mean, that seems to be a big aspect to this, which is
But
your
my
evaluation of
cutting out
food,
seed
not
oils,
even just talking about like food and
that is totally new to me as of last year. I was still using canola oil, vegetable. I thought that it was healthy. That was just another thing that Bitcoin Twitter brought to me, going down that route. I had never heard they were bad. I had no idea. And so yeah, I cut seed oils out last year, and it's been miraculous. Not so much with my weight stays pretty.
and I'm just talking about the seed oils and the lifestyle of that. And
oh my goodness. Well, number one, the food just tastes better. Like the first time I made an egg for my son in bacon grease, he was like, "What is this? This is delicious." It just tastes better. But I have always been terrified of the sun. I've been in the hospital with a severe sunburn. And I do not burn now. I had a little bit of a burn, but I was like 9 hours on the beach, but I didn't blister. I didn't end up in the hospital. And I just thought that this is the craziest thing, like, that we could be ingesting something. And I tend to think I'm health conscious, and that I was before this. And for me not to know this, and that we can't avoid this in our diet, like it was startling to me.
but how extreme do you take it? Like when you're traveling, or you're in an airport, are you never eating fast food, or what do you do at a wedding or a restaurant?
Yeah, I'm not so much like if we're at a wedding or something, I don't ask them what they cooked it in, but we rarely go out to eat. But when I do, if it's a steakhouse, I ask them to use butter. I do say those things. But it's easy.
Do you trust them? Like, what's the reaction like?
I haven't had anybody give me a hard time. I mean, I guess maybe they could be lying to me, but yeah, I especially like breakfast plate. Like I like to go to Waffle House. I'll have like eggs and bacon there, and yeah, they just will cook it in butter, no problem. So, and at home, it's super easy to avoid it.
Right. Yeah, at home, I can get that. It's whenever I'm out of the house, I just.
But I pack, like when I go to the conferences, I always like bring like biltong and jerky, and like I'll pack. Unfortunately, so many people are on some kind of keto or carnivore, like they're usually happy to go to a steakhouse. So it's been pretty easy.
Right. And what's your deal with grammar and spelling?
It's just one of my nerdy things that makes me laugh. So, and I don't know if did you see when Sailor laughed at my one silly grammar joke?
I don't recall offhand.
Yeah, he had like, I was just giddy that, I think that people tend to think that he's, very serious, but he does have a good sense of humor. So yeah, I love puns and, wordplay and grammar jokes. It's just, I think being a lifelong reader, I just appreciate those kind of things.
Yeah, my mom was vicious with correcting my spelling and grammar, and I really appreciate it looking back on it.
Yeah, that's great.
But she was all over me. I mean, she was a teacher. Why is your favorite word succulent?
Oh, it's just, I do love that word. And someone had said, it was a patient today who said something about a succulent steak that he had had. And I was like, oh, that's my favorite word, succulent.
And what is your most famous meme?
Oh, hands down, it's the one I have pinned. And it's how I got to know so many of the people I adore in Bitcoin. Was my "We Need More Women in Bitcoin," and I turned all of the well-known or some of the well-known people in Bitcoin into women.
And what did you make of this tweet, or what's been the reaction like to this tweet?
Oh gosh, overwhelmingly positive. So, I mean, there are a few people who just have, who I think didn't understand the humor of it, but by and large, like most of the people that I, again, just respect so much, had a great reaction to it. And Sailor had a great reaction to it. And so it just, for me, I respect people who don't take themselves too seriously. And that made me, it's who I've really have gotten closer to is people who don't take themselves too seriously on Twitter. And that would be me. I just, I mean, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And if I am, I'm doing something wrong, like I don't expect everybody to like me, and I just want to have fun. And if you don't, cheers. That's not a big deal.
I was thinking about it a little bit today, and it made me think about false headlines.
Yeah.
And what has been your take with, I guess, the news? I mean, you used to watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it like reading the news today?
I can't turn it on now, and I just scrutinize I read everything with skepticism. I don't have any trust in mainstream media anymore. And again, coming from someone who always was just trusting that we were being told the truth, and and that these were reliable sources, and that there's nothing, so much of what I read, it's just, I feel like that it's no different than us being in China. And I did have a patient once say this to me. She said, oh, it's interesting. Like, we had the news on the TV on the ceiling. And she said, it's funny how much people watch the news here in America. I said, really? And she said, yeah, we don't watch it much in China. It's because we know that it's just propaganda. I was like, well, now I'm like, oh, it's the same, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So then you've homeschooled your kids, right?
I homeschooled them, my younger two, for a year during the pandemic, because the end of the year of that first year was disaster. Virtual school was disastrous in our area. It was poorly run. They just didn't have the systems down. It would go down all the time. It was just a nightmare for us. So we have several patients who are homeschooling for various reasons, but several of them are actors. And I always thought homeschooling people were crazy, but it was one of these moms who are like, well, we do it because it's easier because of with their schedule. And that was sort of another light bulb moment for me. And they gave me their book-based rather than computer-based program, and we did it. And I would homeschool my kids forever if I could. I have so many concerns about the school system now I didn't have before, but they do both love being in school because of sports and other things. So
right. But what was your daughter's experience with math like during that 1 year of homeschooling?
Oh, that was incredible. So our day doing homeschooling that time was like, it would only be 2 to 3 hours a day. And my daughter, who is a very high achiever, was really concerned about going back to school. They had Iowa test back in, and she was really concerned. And I don't feel like I learned anything this past year. And she skipped up 3 grades of math in 1 year of homeschooling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that very interesting, and I'm developing my own concerns as well.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone whose parents are public school teachers, but I do think it's important to question authority, and I don't like the way things are going. Not that they've ever been great. But I want to settle some controversial Twitter debates. And you're a doctor, you're smart. So cast iron or stainless steel?
I'm cast iron all the way. Yeah, it's the one thing I'm disagree. This is like my Jordan Peterson thing with safety. And I'm cast iron maxi.
All right. And what about fake Christmas tree or real?
I do both. I need the smell of the real, but then we have the kids Christmas tree. So I'm a little bit of a freak with Christmas decorating. So
all right. What about carnivore diet or keto?
Carnivore for me, but I have a previous diabetes diagnosis, so carnivore just works better for me.
And shoes or barefoot?
Oh, I wear shoes, but I read that book. What was that called, about the running, not barefoot running, Born to Run. And I mean, that was another just amazing, eye-opening book to me. And so yeah, I try to walk around barefoot as much, and being Asian, I tend not to wear shoes in the house. So, but yeah, so I'd say a combo of both.
All right. And then KYC or KYC free Bitcoin?
Oh wait, what's the KYC?
KYC or KYC free Bitcoin or non-KYC Bitcoin?
Oh, if I had my way, I would do completely KYC free Bitcoin, but it's just, it isn't how I started. It's not that easy for someone who, it's just not that easy to get KYC free Bitcoin.
Sure. And then, so, but do you have any, yeah, I mean, I think I'm coming from the same standpoint. I started a KYC Bitcoin. I see the value in KYC free Bitcoin, but I think it's a tough bridge to get.
It's a tough bridge. I think that, you know, the like things like join market, like I would love to do, it's just, it's not, and it's not that easy. And then I took a friend, she was really interested in using the Bitcoin ATMs, and we did that, but the premium was exorbitant. That was sort of shocking to her, you know. So it's just, and I get it, there's ways that you can go and meet people, and I just am not comfortable with all of that, but I understand why people do it. I think it'd be really valuable, but
Yeah.
you know. And so I would love to be more well-versed and be able to coin join, but so far it's I'm intimidated greatly by it.
Sure, I hear you. So what's been going on with El Salvador? Have you been there?
Yes.
And yeah, what has that been like? What was your experience been like? And
I love it. The first time I went down was for adopting Bitcoin in 21, and just fell in love with the area. I've gone down many times now, brought my family for the holidays. They loved it. And we're working on building a clinic there for a medical and dental clinic in El Zonte. There isn't one currently. People, and there's no pharmacy either. So we found these wonderful women there, a dental student, her sister's a physician, already graduated. And I think the third one, she's in biology. She may go to pharmacy school, but we'd like them to run the clinic, own and run the clinic. So we are fundraising. It was a lot easier in the bull market to get funds. So I was hoping to do it with all Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin to fund this, but it's not going to be possible. So we are reaching out now to other corporations, but I will say it's, yeah, a much harder, just giving is not where it was, but one way or the other, I'll get it done. I will have that built. I have no doubt.
so tell me more. Why do they need the clinic there? I mean, you mentioned they don't have a pharmacy, but
yeah, there's no medical clinic, there's no dental clinic, and the needs are great. I mean, when I went there and looked at these mouths, I didn't see one mouth, not between, you know, didn't matter if it was a 2-year-old or a 50-year-old, there wasn't one clean mouth there. They all had at least 1 or 2 bombed out teeth. And to see something like that, to see, you know, 25-year-olds that every tooth in their mouth is rotted out, a little bit of prevention would go such a long way. And there is a really amazing dentist down there doing, and he had raised some money in 21 to do total mouth reconstructions. That's his passion. That's what, you know, he wants to do. But for me, when I saw that, it was, I would love to see patients never need that. It would be very easy to give them services so that they never get to that point.
What are their expectations for, I don't want to call it dental hygiene, but they're around dental around their teeth? Like, do they?
Nope. A lot of them didn't have a toothbrush. They commonly say, my parents have bad teeth, so I'm going to lose all of my teeth. And then typically they had a soda in their hand. So it's just, there's a lack of education. And then there's not, you know, there literally is there's no place to get a cleaning in El Zonte. You're getting on a bus. And I will say, people who've stayed, you know, Bitcoiners who've stayed in El Zonte, I met one down at this last adopting Bitcoin, and his child had a medical issue while there. They had to drive to San Salvador. There's no place there's not a, you know, dock in the box, or you've got to go to San Salvador. So just to have something like that would be just an amazing thing for the community.
So then, you know, a lot of people, I think volunteerism is great, especially around these sort of local projects that could really impact people's lives.
Yes.
I think it's very different than, say, maybe activism. So what I don't think people maybe they yearn to do these things, but some people who haven't don't understand the work that goes involved in this. So what kind of work have you had to do to launch a project like this?
Oh,
How do you even get grounded in how much something like this costs, how much money you need? Are you writing proposals? Are you doing presentations? Who do you call?
yeah, so that's what we're having to do now. You know, my original thought was we'll just crowdfund and, you know, raise this. The women that are there had already had plans for a medical clinic. They just didn't have the funds. Once we've made it this larger project, you know, we needed a bigger plot of land. So, and that here in the US, you find a piece of land, get that it's not a big deal to get it approved. It's been proven to be much harder in El Salvador. They have a lot more regulations, surprisingly, around biological waste disposal. So, I mean, like the sharps and stuff. So we had a couple other pieces of land that were suitable, but we couldn't get it approved for construction for medical. So we do finally have a piece of land that is suitable. We just don't have all the funds yet. So, but so we've had film crews come down, we're writing proposals, and we're approaching big corporations. My sister, who is a news anchor, a retired news anchor now, if in Hawaii, in Honolulu, she's done a lot of big fundraising projects. So she's brought a lot of her contacts on board who are showing interest and have already pledged money for 2023. So.
And what has the reaction been like in El Salvador? Do they, does anyone question your motives? Are they just excited about it?
Fortunately, we have the locals, and every project like this that I've been a part of, I've never spearheaded one like this, but that I've been a part of, if you don't have locals that are kind of directing and who will take over once everyone else leaves, it dies on the vine, right? So they're just a crucial part of the whole process. So I think them being part of it has been good, because there have already been instances where people have raised funds, used names like, you know, Hope House and, you know, Mike and Mike Peterson, and they'll use that to raise money, and apparently they've disappeared. So I think, and even when I was down there doing the dental exams and stuff, there's a little bit of skepticism. I think there's a little bit of, you know, we don't need people coming in, swooping in and saving us. They don't want that. But I think by and large, I see that most people there do see the need for it. They're excited, and especially because the women are really excited. And, you know, it will be life-changing, not only for these 3 women, but for the community to have this.
Sure. Wow, that's awesome. What was the experience like as a tourist? Flying in?
It's fabulous. Have you been?
I haven't been yet.
You must go. I mean, it's fabulous. It's I love everything about it. It's just certainly my husband was skeptical at first, was worried, you know. I mean, when you hear El Salvador, even now, my friends, I mean, I've been down 7 times and they'll still be like, you know, you should not be going there. It's the murder capital of the world. But I've never felt a bit unsafe. It's and it's beautiful, the hiking, the people. It's just, you feel the hope even now with Bitcoin down. I think it's, especially in El Zonte, like people get excited still, even with Bitcoin, you know, not being where it was. So
do you think then El Salvador, I mean, people have a reaction when you say El Salvador, I'm going to El Salvador, and I think historically it was a very unsafe or less safer place.
yeah.
So do you think that it has changed and become a lot safer?
100%. I mean, this last trip for adopting Bitcoin 22, one of the nights we were walking around like at midnight in San Salvador, that I would imagine 5 years ago that probably wasn't possible, you know. But I think for me, it was a couple of visits ago, we were doing some touristy stuff as a family, and this group that we met, almost all of the people in the group were Salvadorans who were visiting for the first time at Christmas in 5 to 15 years. And I'll never forget, one of the older couples, they said, we didn't think we would ever visit our country again. We're so happy to be here. And to me, that was even more important than all these tourists who are flooding in and Bitcoiners. And it was when people are willing to go back to their country, when they fled in horrible circumstances, that spoke of, just, I think that said everything I needed to know.
Yeah. I didn't get to see Bukele's interview on Tucker Carlson, but I saw a clip.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how, as someone who's not from America, he's visiting America. And, the dream for maybe someone from El Salvador was to move to an American city and have a better life. And he said, going to American cities now is, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not the dream anymore. I wouldn't want to move to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Maybe Baltimore feels less safe than El Salvador.
Oh, for sure. On one of the trips, our camera crew, we went to have lunch and they left all their equipment. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in the car and forgot to lock the car. We go to lunch for over an hour, come back out. It was all there. Had I left that here in my hometown, zero chance that even if we would have locked the car, it would have all been gone.
Right. And then when you were there, did you hear a conversation about Bukele? Is it, you go visit a country, you don't necessarily always hear politics or people talking about who the leader is.
But I tend to bring it up. I mean, we've had, drivers and tour guides and things like that. And as of now, I have never heard one person have anything nasty to say about him. It's overwhelmingly positive.
And what was it like from a Bitcoin perspective? Did you see Bitcoin signage places? Was it accepted where you went? Was it more dramatic in El Zante? Is it not that dramatic in El Zante? Was it accepted anywhere else? Do people know what's going on?
So I've gone to El Zante. I on one of the trips I went alone and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to not spend anything but sats the whole time I was there. In El Zante, completely possible, not a problem. San Salvador, not so much. So, and it just is clunky, McDonald's was okay. My little boy wanted to try it there. Starbucks, it worked really well, but a lot of places in San Salvador don't accept it. But in El Zante, you can go to the street lady making, snow cones and pay in sats, and it works really well. Especially the Bitcoin Beach wallet works really well.
Then I think you've been all over the country, more or less, or I'm not everywhere, but you've done some traveling in El Salvador. Yeah. So take Bitcoin out of it. Is El Zante another beach town, or is it different, or is it the same but it has Bitcoin, or is it different because of Bitcoin?
It reminds me of if the Hawaiian North Shore 25 years ago. It's that sleepy, untouched beach town. But yeah, Bitcoin does have an impact. I think people, hope is a cool thing, right? I think I know for myself, if I didn't have Bitcoin and now I kind of understand all this macro world economy stuff that I never understood before, I think it would be easy to feel hopeless and oh my gosh, there's no way out of this. And what are we going to do? I think knowing that I feel that myself, it's what I feel like I see there, that people, like these women that approached us, they had this dream to build this big clinic. And I don't know, I wonder if they would have dreamt that big without Bitcoin. And this was, they've had these plans before they met me. We just have made it bigger. So I do wonder if Bitcoin brought that to, their parents left when they're in elementary school to work in the United States and have been sending money back. So, I have to think that it's brought a level of hope that I know so many Bitcoiners have felt Bitcoin has brought to our lives,
Yeah. Speaking of hope, so if you think about the notion of, every parent wants their child to do better than them.
Yes.
And I don't think that's just, I want my kid to have a McMansion and be a spoiled brat, but you want them to be a little more well off than you. And considering the world, the way it's gone over the last 3 years, and in your own personal sort of transformation on that viewpoint, are you hopeful for the future, for our children and the world we're handing over to them? I feel like we're in a little bit of information warfare on Twitter. I feel like in an odd way, you're a mom on the front lines.
Yeah.
you know, a business owner on the front lines, not causing too much of a ruckus, but poking some feathers. But like,
Yes.
and these are serious things that we're talking about, even though it's funny. Are you hopeful for our children's future?
Of course I'm hopeful, and I know what I want to happen. But I am fearful as well. Like when especially like the Western world, I really, I just keep coming back to like so many strange things. I mean, it's weekly now that I'll see something and just think to myself, I can't believe this is happening. My hometown of San Francisco, I can't believe. I mean, I thought it was the best city in the world, and I don't even want to visit anymore. My parents, who are lifelong opera buffs, they said that they would always maintain a place there, completely sold everything and got out last year. I mean, they don't maintain a home there anymore. And when I see these things, it is frightening to me. It's frightening to see just the decline in, and like family that we have, cousins and things in Korea. It was always the hope. I want to go to the US. I want to go to school in the US. We're not hearing that anymore. It's not the dream to be in the US anymore. And it's startling to me. And I keep looking back at things about the fall of empires. And I just, when I see that, it does, I'm hopeful that things can be better, but I do have some concerns.
Right. Yeah. I mean, trying to think of a way to maybe get to maybe a positive note.
Yes.
But in the meantime, if we all came with warning labels, what would yours say?
Oh. We'll talk about Bitcoin.
And do you talk about Bitcoin with your kids?
Oh, often, yeah, and they all have wallets, and they all, you know, they're allowed to purchase themselves. It was Christmas gifts, and so yeah. I mean, I think that's how I stay hopeful, right? Like I do feel like this is it's a solid strategy of having something else. So,
Do you think are they Bitcoiners?
no, not even my oldest. I wouldn't call them. No, none of my kids are. They all have it. Same thing with a lot of my family members. They pretty much all of them have some Bitcoin now. Of my family, I'd say the closest would be my husband, and that's just because he lets me do what I want to do. But he read the Bitcoin Standard. He had a fancy exotic car. He sold it and bought Bitcoin. So I mean, he's that much into it, but like he has no desire to go to conferences or things like that.
Sure. And then what's the move to Hawaii all about?
So just a lot of family there, you know, and it just is, it doesn't suck.
Do you think your lifestyle is going to change? Do you think it becomes a little bit more of a dream life when you get there? And what are you going to do with your time?
Yeah, so we're definitely looking at what to do at our time. I think for 2 years we're just gonna chill. Like we just plan on. We both love working out. My husband's decided he's been trying to figure out what he's a gun enthusiast. He loves to shoot, and he loves to barbecue, things like that. But he's gonna take up jujitsu. He's decided. He just came up with that. And then I am working on learning Spanish and Korean. And then I love to cook and I love to work out. I think we're both going to try to get into Ironman Hawaii to sort of end our Ironman triathlon careers. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll keep busy. And then I think after a couple of years, I'm a little too, I will get bored if I don't have something that keeps me motivated.
Do you think you'll ever give up dentistry?
In terms of, we will never own a practice again. Will
you stop seeing patients, even if it's once a year, to see your favorite patient? Or
oh yeah, we won't see anybody privately like that. But what we will do is we plan on, you know, going a couple months a year to the clinic in El Zonte and practicing dentistry.
All right. And then I guess, you know, do you have any words of wisdom or parenting tips for everyone out there?
That's a hard one. it's the hardest job I've ever had. And my kids are wonderful, but it's the hardest job. And no matter how great you think you're doing it, you're not going to get everything right. But I think my biggest parental advice is just love them, but let them struggle, let them, don't save them. It is what builds character and resilience.
And what is your favorite thing about Bitcoin?
I know that people get mad and say there's no Bitcoin community, but it's the community, the people I have met in Bitcoin. I just am continually amazed at how smart and what people have to offer and how gracious they are with their knowledge. And I just love learning every day. It's what keeps me, like, I'm enjoying Nostr so much, but Twitter, I do stay engaged because I learn something every day from some Bitcoiner that I'm on Twitter.
All right. And then my final question would be, if you could orange pill anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh, I've seen this question before. You know who I would have to say is, and I think this is probably the most like vanilla answer, but it's Joe Rogan. I just think he has such a powerful, great voice. It just seems like it should be right there. And so, yeah, it would be Joe Rogan.
I don't think he's ever going to do it.
I don't either.
I think it's the end of the show. I think it would be his version of jumping the shark.
It's just
it would provide a solution to everything that he discusses without answers with his audience.
Oh, you know who I'll say then? I agree with you actually that I don't think he'll ever do it. Who I would love to see be a Bitcoiner, and I just discovered her last week and I'm just amazed by her, is Whitney Webb. She's amazing. And yeah, she would be a fabulous Bitcoiner.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to see Whitney become a bit. I would love to get her on the show as well.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Fascinating writing and points of view.
Just smart as hell too, and like her research, like, yeah, I think she's fabulous. But again, like my mind is blown every time I sit, like I have the books on order. Like, yeah, again, I just feel kind of stupid and like I'm going through an awakening with all of this stuff, because I'm still, despite everything I know now, I'm shocked.
Yeah, it is shocking. But this conversation has been awesome. I want to thank you so much. I'll leave it to you for any parting words and let people know where they can find you and your memes.
Yeah. So thanks so much for having me on. It was so great talking to you. And if you want to find me, I'm Susie B DDS on Twitter. And I'm the same on Nostr, which that's just been cool, being able to talk with Jack a lot. He's very different there than he is on Twitter. And if you're not there and really want a decentralized place to have free speech, I highly recommend Nostr. Yeah,
I saw it in your Twitter bio. It's interesting how it really seems to be catching on for Bitcoiners, and I'll have to check it out.
It's cool. So yeah, it's so great talking to you.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on any fresh and new content. I want to thank Susie for taking the time to come on the show. I also want to thank our sponsors, River Financial and Coinkite, for powering the show. Huge shout out and much appreciation to those of you who are streaming and boosting the show for Sats on the Fountain app. In response to the Robert Malone show, Boost legend Eric99 threw down 50,000 sats, wrote thank you for your hard work and dedication to the truth. Stay humble and stack sats. Tesla Liberty boosted us 5,000 sats and wrote such a good show. Cedric, you were the best interviewer on the Bitcoin podcast team. This was so based. Thank you so much, my friends, for the precious sats and kind words. It means a lot to me and my family. Luke Mikic, Eric Weiss, Tor Demista, Greg Zaj, Robin Malka, Nozomi Hayesi, and Eric Kaysen are all up next. Stay humble, stack sats, and get laser focused out there. This is Cedric. Peace.